Do-hyun Kim stared at his computer screen, reading the same email for the fifth time. His eyes were tired, and his coffee had gone cold. The clock on his office wall showed 7:30 p.m. He was late again. His daughter Hae-yeon would be waiting at the after-school center, probably the last child there. Again. He ran his fingers through his messy black hair and sighed. Being both a top quantum physicist and a single father was harder than he had ever imagined. The last babysitter had quit 3 days ago, making her the fourth one this year. Hae-yeon was a sweet child, but she was too smart for her own good. She would ask questions that most adults couldn't answer, and it made the babysitters feel uncomfortable. The new email in front of him seemed almost too good to be true. The subject line read, Universal Caregiving Exchange Program. Your application has been accepted. Do-hyun hadn't really expected anything when he filled out the application 2 months ago. The program was new, a partnership between Earth's space agency and other friendly alien civilizations. The idea was simple. Qualified caregivers from advanced alien species would be matched with families on Earth. It sounded like science fiction, but here was the acceptance email. His phone buzzed. It was Mrs. Choi from the after-school center. Dr. Kim, Hae-yeon is the only child left. Will you be coming soon? I'm so sorry, Do-hyun said, quickly gathering his papers. I'm leaving right now. 20 minutes later, he found Hae-yeon sitting at a small table, drawing complex patterns in her notebook. At 7 years old, she already showed signs of having her father's brilliant mind. Her small face lit up when she saw him. Appa, she called out, using the Korean word for dad. Look what I drew today. It's the structure of an atom. Do-hyun felt the familiar mix of pride and guilt wash over him. His daughter was drawing atomic structures while waiting for her always-late father. That night, after tucking Hae-yeon into bed, Do-hyun sat down to reply to the email. The program representative would arrive tomorrow to discuss the details. He felt nervous but also hopeful. Maybe this time, they would find someone who could keep up with Hae-yeon's curious mind. The next morning, Do-hyun was surprised to find Director Yoon from the space agency waiting in his office. The director was a small, cheerful woman who always wore bright-colored suits. Dr. Kim, she said with a warm smile, I'm here personally because your case is special. We found a perfect match for your family. She placed a holographic device on his desk. A 3D image appeared, showing a humanoid figure. Do-hyun's eyes widened. The being looked almost human, except for her silvery skin that seemed to shimmer like starlight. Her eyes were large and iridescent, changing colors like soap bubbles in sunlight. This is Era, Director Yoon explained. She's from the Lyrian civilization. They're one of the most advanced species we've encountered. Lyrians are known for their deep understanding of emotions and exceptional intelligence. They look very human-like, which helps children feel comfortable around them. Do-hyun studied the image carefully. Will she be able to handle Earth's atmosphere, our gravity? Director Yoon nodded. Lyrians are highly adaptable. Their biology is remarkably similar to ours. The main difference is their emotional capacity. They experience feelings more intensely than humans do, but this makes them excellent caregivers. They form strong bonds with children. Do-hyun frowned slightly. Strong bonds. I'm looking for a professional arrangement. Not. Of course, Director Yoon interrupted smoothly. All Lyrian caregivers are trained to maintain appropriate boundaries. Ara has an impressive background in childhood development. She'll arrive tomorrow morning if you accept. Everything was moving so fast. Do-hyun thought about Hae-yeon, alone at the after-school center. He thought about all the times he had to cancel important research because of childcare issues. He looked at Era's image again. There was something gentle about her expression, despite her alien appearance. Okay, he said finally. Let's try this. The next morning, Do-hyun and Hae-yeon waited nervously in their living room. He had tried to explain to his daughter that their new babysitter would look different, but Hae-yeon seemed more excited than scared. At exactly 9:00 a.m., their doorbell rang. Do-hyun opened the door, and for a moment, he forgot to breathe. The hologram hadn't done Era justice. She was tall and graceful, her silver skin glowing softly in the morning light. Her hair looked like strands of starlight, flowing gently as if moved by an invisible breeze. But what struck him most were her eyes. They seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. "Hello, Dr. Kim," she said in perfect Korean, her voice musical and warm. "I'm Era. Thank you for accepting me into your home." Hae-yun peeked out from behind her father's legs. Era knelt down to the child's level, her movements fluid and gentle. "And you must be Hae-yun," she said softly. "I heard you like to learn about atoms. Would you like to know how atoms look in different star systems?" Hae-yun's eyes grew wide with wonder. She stepped forward, already reaching for Era's hand. Do-hyun watched as his daughter and the alien babysitter sat down together. Era produced a small device that projected 3D models of various atomic structures, each one glowing with different colors. Hae-yun was completely captivated, asking questions that Era answered with patience and enthusiasm. Something tight in Do-hyun's chest began to loosen. For the first time in years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, things would work out. But as he watched Era's eyes change color with every smile, reflecting the joy she clearly felt while teaching Hae-yun, he remembered Director Yoon's words about Lyrians experiencing emotions more intensely. He told himself this was strictly a professional arrangement. He had to keep it that way. Still, as he prepared to leave for work, he couldn't help noticing how natural Era and Hae-yun looked together, like two pieces of a puzzle he hadn't known was incomplete. "I'll be home by 6, he said, picking up his briefcase. Era looked up at him, her eyes now a deep, calming blue. "Don't worry, Dr. Kim. Hae-yun and I will have a wonderful day. We might even learn about quantum entanglement while you're gone." Do-hyun almost dropped his briefcase. "Quantum entanglement. That's my field of research. How did you?" Era's eyes sparkled with amusement. "Lyrians have been studying quantum mechanics for centuries. But don't worry, we'll start with the basics." As Do-hyun walked to his car, he heard Hae-yun's delighted laughter floating through the open window. He had wanted a babysitter, someone to keep his daughter safe and entertained while he worked. Instead, he got a being who could teach his child about quantum physics while making her laugh. He had a feeling his life was about to change in ways he never expected. The question was he ready for it? 2 weeks had passed since Era arrived, and Do-hyun's home felt different. The usually quiet apartment now rang with laughter and excited conversations about science. Every evening when he returned from work, he found something new and amazing waiting for him. Today, he walked in to find his living room transformed into a mini planetarium. Tiny points of light floated in the air, forming constellations he had never seen before. Hae-yun lay on her back on the carpet, pointing at different stars while Era told stories about each one. "Appa." Hae-yun jumped up when she saw him. "Era showed me the stars from her home system. Did you know their sun is purple?" Do-hyun set down his briefcase, amazed by the detailed projection filling his living room. "Purple." Era waved her hand, and the stars rearranged themselves. Her silver skin reflected the starlight, making her look like she was made of stardust. "Actually, it's more of a deep violet. The color affects how our plants evolved. Would you like to see?" Before he could answer, she created a new image. A strange but beautiful forest appeared in the middle of their living room. The trees had silver leaves that seemed to sing in an invisible wind. Hae-yun reached out to touch them, giggling as her hand passed through the hologram. "This is where you grew up?" Do-hyun asked, finding himself drawn into the alien landscape. Era's eyes turned a soft shade of purple, matching her home sun. "Yes, though I spend most of my time in the learning centers now. Or at least I did, before coming here." "Learning centers?" Hae-yun asked, still trying to catch the holographic leaves. "Where young Lyrians go to study," Era explained. "Like your school, but we learn about all the different species in the galaxy." She paused, her eyes shifting to a deeper blue. That's partly why I joined the exchange program. I wanted to learn about humans firsthand. Do-hyun noticed something in her voice, a hint of something left unsaid. But before he could ask, Hae-yun tugged on his sleeve. Appa, look what I learned today. She ran to get her tablet, pulling up a complex mathematical equation. Era taught me about fractals. See how the pattern keeps repeating. It's like the universe is playing with building blocks. Do-hyun stared at the equation. It was far beyond second grade level, but Hae-yun explained it with perfect understanding. He looked at Ara, who was watching Hae-yun with obvious pride. She has a remarkable mind, Era said softly. She sees patterns that most humans twice her age miss. The next day at work, Do-hyun couldn't focus on his research. His colleague, Jae-won Park, found him staring at a picture Hae-yun had drawn, a surprisingly accurate diagram of a fractal pattern. Your daughter drew this? Jae-won asked, adjusting his glasses. It's incredible. Era's been teaching her, Do-hyun explained. She has a way of making complex ideas seem simple. Jae-won smiled knowingly. Ah yes, the mysterious alien babysitter. You talk about her a lot, you know. Do-hyun felt his ears grow warm. She's good with Hae-yun. That's all that matters. Right, Jae-won said, still smiling. That's why you blush every time someone mentions her name. That evening, Do-hyun got home early. He found Era and Hae-yun in the kitchen, making what looked like cookies, but they glowed with soft blue light. They're special Lyrian treats, Era explained, seeing his worried look. Completely safe for humans. They glow because of a reaction between simple sugars and a harmless mineral from my world. She handed him one. Try it. The cookie melted in his mouth, tasting like vanilla and starlight. If starlight had a taste. Hae-yun was already on her second one, her mouth glowing blue as she chewed. The mineral is the same one that makes my skin silver, Era continued, her eyes changing to a warm golden color. It helps us absorb different types of light for energy. That's why we can survive on many different worlds. Do-hyun watched as she helped Hae-yun measure ingredients for another batch. His daughter had never been this happy with previous babysitters. But Era wasn't just watching Hae-yun. She was teaching her, challenging her, opening up whole new worlds for her to explore. Later that night, after Hae-yun went to bed, Do-hyun found Era in the living room, looking at Earth's moon through the window. Thank you, he said quietly, for everything you're doing for Hae-yun. Era turned to him, her eyes swirling with colors he couldn't name. She reminds me of myself at that age. Always asking questions, always wanting to understand more. She paused, then added, on my world, such curiosity is not always encouraged. We have expectations about how each person should behave. Is that why you left? Do-hyun asked, remembering her earlier hesitation about the learning centers. Era's skin shimmed slightly, like ripples on water. Partly. I was supposed to take a position at a prestigious research facility. Very proper, very traditional. But I wanted to learn about other worlds, other ways of thinking. She smiled softly. I never expected to find exactly what I was looking for in a small apartment in Seoul. Do-hyun felt his heart skip a beat. The moonlight played across Era's silver skin, making her look both alien and somehow more real than anything else in the room. He reminded himself again that this was supposed to be a professional arrangement. But when Era started humming a Lyrian lullaby, its strange, beautiful notes hanging in the air like drops of light, Do-hyun realized something was changing. The boundaries he had tried to maintain were slowly fading, like stars at dawn. The problem was, he wasn't sure he wanted to stop it. The next morning, Hae-yun asked if Era could come to her school's Parents' Day. The question caught both adults off guard. Honey, Do-hyun started. I don't know if. Please. Hae-yun looked between them with hopeful eyes. Tahi teacher said we could bring people who are important to us. And Era is important. Do-hyun looked at Ara, whose eyes had turned a soft pink color he had never seen before. He knew they should say no. It would raise too many questions, draw too much attention. But then Era knelt down beside Hei-yun and said, "I would be honored. Though perhaps we should check with your school first about having an alien visitor." Hei-yun threw her arms around Era's neck, and Do-hyun watched as Era's skin glowed brighter, responding to the child's joy. He realized that despite all his careful plans to keep things professional, his little family had already changed in ways he never expected. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't such a bad thing. The trouble began on a normal Tuesday morning. Hei-yun woke up with strange purple spots on her arms. At first, Do-hyun thought it was just an allergic reaction. But by lunchtime, the school nurse called. Hei-yun's temperature had risen to 39.5 degrees Celsius, 103.1 degrees Fahrenheit, and the spots were spreading. Do-hyun rushed to the school, finding Era already there. Her usual silver glow had dimmed, and her eyes swirled with worried gray colors. Hei-yun laid on the nurse's bed, her small face flushed with fever. "Appa," Hei-yun whispered, reaching for his hand. "I don't feel good." The next few hours passed in a blur of hospital corridors and confused doctors. The purple spots now covered most of Hei-yun's body, and none of the doctors had seen anything like it. Their tests showed nothing wrong, yet Hei-yun's fever kept rising. Do-hyun paced in the hospital room while Era sat next to Hei-yun's bed, singing soft Lyrian songs to keep the child calm. He noticed how Era's eyes kept changing between worried gray and thoughtful blue, as if she was trying to remember something important. Finally, as evening approached, Era stood up suddenly. "I've seen these symptoms before," she said quietly. Do-hyun stopped pacing. "What? Where?" Era's skin rippled with emotion. "On my world. It's called the Star Child's fever. It's rare, but it sometimes happens when young Lyrians first develop their ability to absorb different types of light." She touched one of the purple spots gently. "But I've never heard of it happening to a human child." "Could it be because of the cookies?" Do-hyun asked, remembering the glowing treats they had made. "Or the holograms?" Era shook her head. "No, those are completely safe. This is different." She hesitated, then continued. "Dr. Kim, there's something I need to tell you. I'm not just a caregiver. On my world, I'm a xenopediatrician, a doctor who specializes in treating children from different species." Do-hyun stared at her. "You're a doctor. Why didn't you say anything?" Era's skin darkened with what looked like shame. "Because I left my position. On my world, xenopediatricians are supposed to stay in research facilities, studying other species from a distance. But I wanted to work with children directly, to really understand them. When I heard about the exchange program, I saw my chance." Her eyes turned a deep blue of sadness. "I'm sorry I wasn't honest with you." Before Do-hyun could respond, Hei-yun let out a small whimper of pain. The monitors showed her fever rising even higher. "Can you help her?" Do-hyun asked, his anger forgotten in his worry for his daughter. "Yes, but—" Era's skin flickered anxiously. "I would need medicine from my world. If I contact them for help, they'll know where I am and what I've done. I'll lose my place in the exchange program." Do-hyun took her hand without thinking. Her skin felt like silk under his fingers. "Please," he said softly, "help my daughter." Era's eyes changed to a determined gold color. She pulled out a small device that looked like a pearl and spoke into it in musical Lyrian language. A voice answered, sounding surprised and then angry. Era kept talking, her voice growing more passionate. Finally, she looked at Do-hyun. "They're sending the medicine. But I'll have to leave once Hei-yun is better. I've broken too many rules." The medicine arrived an hour later through some kind of teleportation device. It looked like liquid starlight. Era mixed it with water and helped Hei-yun drink it. Within minutes, the girl's fever began to drop. As Hei-yun slept peacefully, her purple spots slowly fading, Do-hyun and Era sat together in the quiet hospital room. "Why did you really join the exchange program?" Do-hyun asked. Era was quiet for a long moment. "On my world, everything is organized, categorized, proper. Xenopediatricians study children from other worlds, but we're not supposed to care about them. We're not supposed to form bonds." She looked at Hae-yun's sleeping face. "But how can you understand children if you don't love them? Your people don't approve of emotional connections with other species. They think it clouds our judgment, makes us less scientific." Era's skin rippled with colors Do-hyun had never seen before. "But I've learned more about human children in these few weeks with Hae-yun than I did in years of formal study. And I've learned—" She stopped, her eyes turning a deep purple. "What have you learned?" Do-hyun asked softly. "That sometimes the most important discoveries aren't the ones you can write down in research papers." She turned to him, her eyes swirling with colors that made his heart race. "Sometimes they're the ones you feel in your soul." Do-hyun thought about his own research into quantum entanglement, how particles could be connected across any distance, influencing each other in ways that defied normal physics. He wondered if emotions could work the same way, creating connections that transcended normal boundaries. "You're a brilliant doctor," he said. "Your people are wrong to try to keep you from working directly with children." Era's skin glowed brighter at his words. "Maybe. But it doesn't matter now. Once Hae-yun is fully recovered, I'll have to go back." "No," Do-hyun said firmly. "We'll find a way. Hae-yun needs you. And—" He took a deep breath. "And I need you too." Era's eyes widened, turning a brilliant gold color he had never seen before. Before she could respond, Hae-yun stirred in her sleep, mumbling something about glowing cookies and singing stars. They both turned to watch the child sleep, their hands still joined. Outside the hospital window, Earth's moon shone brightly, its light making Era's skin shimmer. Do-hyun realized that what had started as a simple search for a babysitter had turned into something much more complex and beautiful. Now he just had to figure out how to keep his newfound family together, even if it meant challenging the rules of two different worlds. 3 days after Hae-yun came home from the hospital, Do-hyun sat in his research lab, staring at his computer screen. He hadn't slept much, spending his nights reviewing years of quantum entanglement data. There was something about Era's explanation of Lyrian emotions that kept nagging at his mind. "You're here early," Jae-won said, walking into the lab with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Do-hyun. "How's Hae-yun?" "Much better," Do-hyun said, taking the coffee gratefully. "The medicine worked perfectly. But Ara—" He trailed off, looking at the complex equations on his screen. Jae-won pulled up a chair. "Tell me what's bothering you." Do-hyun opened a new file on his computer. "Look at this. It's a scan of Lyrian brain activity that Era helped me get. See these patterns?" He pointed to waves of light moving across the screen. "They're almost identical to the quantum patterns we've been studying." Jae-won leaned closer, adjusting his glasses. "That's impossible. Quantum effects don't work in biological systems at this scale. The environment is too warm, too chaotic." "That's what we thought," Do-hyun said, his voice growing excited. "But Lyrians evolved under a different sun with different physics. Their entire biology is quantum-based. That's why they can absorb light for energy, why their skin changes color with their emotions." He pulled up another screen showing his research data. "And look at this. When Lyrians form emotional bonds, their quantum patterns sync up, just like entangled particles. They literally connect at the quantum level." Jae-won whistled softly. "This could change everything we know about quantum biology. But why are you so focused on their emotional connections?" Do-hyun sat back in his chair, remembering how Era's skin glowed brighter whenever Hae-yun hugged her, how her eyes changed color when she looked at him. "Because I think humans can form these quantum bonds too. We just never knew to look for them." He worked through the night, checking and double-checking his calculations. As the sun rose, he finally had his proof. He called Director Yoon immediately. An hour later, She sat in his office, looking through his research with wide eyes. "This is remarkable. Dr. Kim, you're saying that human emotions can create quantum entanglement effects?" "Yes, but only with certain species that can catalyze the connection. Like the Lyrians." Do-hyun took a deep breath. "Director Yoon, the Universal Caregiving Exchange Program isn't just about childcare, is it? You're studying how different species interact." The director smiled slowly. "Very perceptive. Yes, we've been looking for evidence of deep compatibility between humans and other species. This could be exactly what we need." She stood up. "I'll take this to the Lyrian Science Council immediately. With proof that our species can form quantum-level bonds, they'll have to reconsider their policies about interspecies relationships." Do-hyun hurried home, his heart pounding. He found Ara in the kitchen, helping Hae-yun with her breakfast. Both of them looked up when he burst in. "Appa, you're back." Hae-yun jumped up to hug him. "Are you okay? Your face is all red." "I'm better than okay," he said, looking at Ara. Her eyes were swirling with curious colors. "I found something in my research, something important." He explained his discovery about quantum bonds, watching as Ara's eyes grew wider and brighter with each word. When he finished, her entire body was glowing with a light he had never seen before. "That's why I felt it," she whispered. "The connection. I thought I was just imagining it, that I was letting my emotions cloud my judgment like my people always warned about." "You weren't imagining anything," Do-hyun said softly. "What we feel is real. It's as real as gravity, as real as light itself." Hae-yun looked between them, her small face serious. "Does this mean Ara can stay?" Before either adult could answer, Do-hyun's phone rang. It was Director Yoon. "The Lyrian Council has reviewed your research," she said, her voice excited. "They're not just accepting it. They're sending a team of scientists to study it further. And," she paused dramatically, "they're officially changing their policy on interspecies relationships. Any Lyrian in the exchange program can now choose to extend their stay indefinitely." Do-hyun looked at Ara, whose skin was shimmering like a sunrise. "Did you hear that?" Ara nodded, her eyes filling with colors that seemed to dance in the morning light. "They're letting me choose," she said wonderingly. "For the first time in my life, I can choose my own path." Hae-yun tugged on Ara's hand. "Choose us," she said simply. "We can learn about stars together, and make glowing cookies, and you can teach me more about atoms." Ara knelt down beside Hae-yun, her skin glowing brighter than ever. "Is that what you want? For me to stay?" "Of course." Hae-yun threw her arms around Ara's neck. "Your family now. Right, Appa?" Do-hyun stepped closer, his heart feeling as bright as Ara's skin. "Right. We're like your quantum particles, connected in ways that transcend normal rules." Ara stood up, still holding Hae-yun. She turned to Do-hyun, her eyes swirling with gold and purple and colors he had no names for. "Then I choose this. I choose you both." 6 months later, Do-hyun's apartment was filled with both Earth and Lyrian decorations. Hae-yun's room had star maps from both worlds, and the kitchen always smelled of both Korean food and glowing Lyrian treats. Do-hyun's research into quantum biology was revolutionizing both human and Lyrian science, and Ara had started a program to train more xenopediatricians in hands-on care. But the best changes were the small ones. The way Hae-yun now had 2 parents to tuck her in at night. The way Ara's songs filled their home with otherworldly music. The way Do-hyun's heart jumped every time Ara's skin glowed brighter at his touch. One evening, as they all sat on their balcony watching Earth's moonrise, Hae-yun asked, "Ara, are you happy you came to be my babysitter?" Ara smiled, her skin shimmering in the moonlight. "I came looking for scientific understanding, but I found something much better." She took Do-hyun's hand, their quantum connection making both their hearts beat in sync. "I found a home among the stars." Do-hyun squeezed her hand, marveling at how the universe had brought them together. He had wanted a babysitter, someone to help with his daughter. Instead, he found a whole new constellation of love, one that proved that family, like quantum entanglement, knew no boundaries. High above them, Earth's moon shone down on their little family. A human father, his bright daughter, and the alien who had changed their lives forever. Their story was proof that sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't made in laboratories or research facilities, but in the simple moments when hearts connect across the vast distances of space.